All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Tyler Chrestman. Welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Today, I am joined with a candidate for California governor, the We the People man, Lewis Herms himself. How are you doing today, sir?
Fantastic. How about yourself, Tyler?
Doing great. I want to jump right in to some things. Many of my viewers probably are not going to be familiar with you, and I want to just give them a chance to get to know you a little bit. So before we get into all the politics and everything, I want to just talk a little bit about you. Can you give us a brief bio? Who are you? Where you come from?
Sure. I guess from a business standpoint, I've been considered a troubleshooter for very large businesses for several years. But over the last 6 years, I've developed a platform called Screw Big Gov, because not only did I know government was screwing us, but I'm very familiar with things that used to be called conspiracy that are facts today. So I've done the Truth Tour, which is my product, Freedom in Action, Remember Your Oath. So a lot of functions that help people get activated so we can start taking our country back, working together instead of fighting what people call the system.
Yes. What is so in the business world, a troubleshooter? When I'm reading your bio, I go to your website, I'm reading your bio. It basically makes it sound like you've gone into some large companies that were in trouble and you just sort of turn them around. Is that about right?
Yeah, and they weren't always in trouble. So, for example, for 24 Hour Fitness was a very large company. They had, I think, 40 to 42 clubs per division. And in one division throughout Los Angeles, they would put me into the club that was doing the worst. And it was my goal to get it from statistically up to number one within 3 to 6 months. And then they'd move me to another one and another one and another one. And I did that through my own troubleshooting principles. And then I've worked with several other businesses doing that. And it actually has worked in regards to this political realm. And I don't like politics, by the way, because I see a problem, and I pride myself on changing the language a little bit from a problem to a challenge, because if there's a challenge, there's a solution, and then we can find the solution. And that's why there's already 17 or 20 of them on my website showing the challenges and the solutions. And I've been very successful at that. So I pride myself on that. I think we can do the same thing within the government structure, which is bloated bureaucracy that really doesn't care about the people.
Yeah, one of the things whenever I have somebody who's running for office who's come on the show that I always really enjoy. I went to your website, I was reading everything, and one of the things that I love about it is the transparency. You basically have all these lists of problems that you're going to encounter and what your actual thoughts on them are. And I think that's great because there's not enough of that. I don't feel like many politicians are willing to actually tell you what they think. So I appreciate that. The You talked about you briefly mentioned the Screw Big Gov platform. How did you come about developing that, and what was the goal in mind when it started?
That's a great question. So, what happened is when the lockdowns first started in California, they were more severe than some other places.
Hmm.
My wife and I were really trying to figure everything out. We knew there was a problem immediately. I've honestly been kind of conspiratorial for 30, 40 years. And back then it was probably crazy, but now all of those have come true. So who
Yeah.
knows how crazy we really were, right? So during this, I was noticing that when people were trying to explain the systems, the infrastructure, say the globalist cabal, whatever you want to call it, to people, they locked in on certain narratives that I thought would push us in an echo chamber. And I said, well, if we're really going to take our country and the world back, we need everybody to do their best to get involved. So I said, how can I write a film that does takes them out of their echo chamber so we appeal to the masses? And I wrote a film called 2020 Vision. I wasn't a filmmaker at the time. And then that morphed into me getting some exposure to write another film. And then I did something on something that people don't know about called Deuterium, which got, I don't know, 3.2 million views or something like that. And then I did another film on child sex trafficking, which just really blew up. So then I started doing tours on trying to motivate and activate people. So you wake them up, and then let's get motivated, and let's see if we can do some difference. And I coined a phrase: the micro fixes the macro, because I really do think we hold all the power, and with God's guidance, in my opinion. So that's where we came to this today, is through all that activism, I guess you would call it. I've done a lot of work with Hurricane Helene, victims of certain challenges, and I have a podcast that grew very rapidly. And then the Southern Poverty Law Center went after me, and I became their number one mark, the SPLC, on their hate map 3 years running. And then
Oh,
things got really hard because if anybody understands the way the SPLC works, they embed their operatives inside social media, so on and so forth. So I was losing accounts like crazy. YouTube, 7 TikToks deleted, X deleted. I mean, you can name it. It's just like boom. So that's kind of in the battle. And then when it came to this governor's race, I had no intention of running. I don't like politics. I play around. I say I kind of throw up my mouth when I think about politics. But what I did is I evaluated the candidates, and at the time I couldn't find a candidate that was talking about the medical mafia. I couldn't talk. They weren't talking about our foods being poisoned. They weren't talking about, I know crazy things like chemtrails. They weren't talking about child sex trafficking. They weren't talking about this apparatus that's trying to control people for their own good. And I said, well, what am I going to do, God? And I thought for sure, Tyler, it's going to be, just go ahead and do another documentary, right? And tour up and down California, wake people up. Shockingly, the answer I got is you're running for governor. So here I am today. I paid attention, and we're doing great things currently.
yeah, that's great. I saw you on with Jesse Lee Peterson.
Yeah,
He's just a treasure. That
yeah, he
he's
is.
a fun guy. But you basically you said that you were you basically felt this calling from God to run, and the first thing your reaction you had was not okay. It was I don't know about that.
Yeah, and people get offended when I say that. They said when God tells you you have, I said no. I think God's all right with me arguing with him. He always wins, so it doesn't really matter. So I think it's okay. And I said no, that's not me. I am not running. And
Yeah.
I got a hard yes, you are.
So I bet you were a little bit like myself, and not that we necessarily want to relish in the defeats of others, but that trouble with the SPLC, I bet you're not. You're pretty happy with what's going on with them recently.
Yeah, frankly, it was a vindication because I
Yeah.
was telling people for years you can go look at their hate map, and all my organizations were all over their hate map. I'm the only guy that had 3 separate organizations listed on there. So people say, "Oh, it's a badge of honor. You're over the target." I go, "Yeah, well, it also sucks."
Yeah, when you're dealing with them because they're so embedded with the government and with the media, it's I mean, they just use it to really censor people they just don't like, and they're not hateful, just they don't like conservatives. That's what it is.
They don't like, and they definitely don't like people like myself that are trying to get other people to activate. They find that very dangerous to their operation.
Yeah. Well, it seems like their operation was funding the KKK. So
Crazy, right? Well, it's the old problem solution. They create the problem and they have the solution.
yeah,
Right.
when the supply of racism doesn't meet the demand, so that's where the SPLC comes in.
Oh, beautifully said. Yeah, it's the Hegelian dialect in operation, full fledged.
Yeah. So you now I have a lot of opinions about California. I love that state in some ways. It's great nature, great things. I spent a lot of time there. I basically lived there for 2 years, and it's a wonderful state. But I think it would be very fair to say that it is full of problems. So, as the governor, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that are facing California right in this instance?
Well, I mean, it's corruption over the top in California. So I've said probably 18 months now, I said, if you look at what I call the WARF, the waste, the abuse, the redundancy, and fraud, it's probably around 75%. And I was, as usual, if I'm ahead of the curve, if people are screaming at me that I'm crazy, but now I cannot believe how many people are coming out of the woodwork saying, Lewis, you're probably right. So imagine I am correct. Imagine it's 75% of the budget is waste, abuse, redundancy, and fraud. Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a forensic audit, a complete super doge of it. And we will actually be using AI to help us find the problem because we can find them a lot quicker. But I always say if you use AI, you need to have a human element. So then after it spits out the information, then we as humans need to verify, and then we have to go after the problems. So when we superdoge and actually eliminate these issues, in California, it opens up so many opportunities. Immediately, we should be able to get rid of property taxes and income taxes. That is, it won't even be necessary. Can you imagine what that alone will do to the economy and bringing businesses back in to California? They will flow back into California. And then we need to go against what I call the fraudulent environmental regulations that we have, right? And so on and so forth. So all these things perpetuate from the fact that you have a budget that's really flawed. There's stolen bond money through school bonds and the train to nowhere and all this other stuff in California that will blow people away if they knew how much was stolen just from those. Somebody asked me today, what do you think about the mismanagement of those? I go, it's not mismanagement when the intent is to use those to steal money from us. That's not mismanagement. And we
No.
have to be very careful on our conversations because we tend to say, oh, it's a bloated budget or it's mismanaged or they don't know what they're doing. No, they know exactly what they're doing. They set these apparatuses up so they can fund their cronies, their NGOs, and they steal money from us on a daily basis. If you're gonna go after evil, you need to speak honestly about it. So I don't play any wordsmithing games in regards to that.
Yeah, I think that for a lot of reasons, the budget in California is just outrageous. And the biggest, I mean, just the most glaring example of waste and abuse of the system is that train to nowhere. It's just embarrassing that the
It's
state can't put a high-speed rail in for 20 years and it's cost billions and billions of dollars. It's just an embarrassment.
Yep. And then they have the gall to ask for more. We'll get it
Right.
right this time.
I heard the Governor Newsom the other day out there defending the rail, and I said that is just not a hill you want to die on. It's a bad look.
No, I'd be okay if he died on that hill.
So one of the other big things that I've heard you talk a lot about, and it's something that I talk a lot about, so I really want to get into it with you, is the idea of election integrity, where this to me is one of the biggest issues in the country that people know about. It's often downplayed, but I take it very seriously. So what are your thoughts? I know you have quite a few on this subject.
Right. I do actually. And I say to the best of the people working on election integrity, I go, let's start changing the language. There is no integrity unless we have election reform. So integrity comes after we reform it. Integrity is keeping the system running the way it should run, in my opinion. So I always say we should talk about election reform. So I believe that I have to, if I speak it, I have to act it, I have to lead by example. So we just ended a 58 county tour to interview all the elections register of voters in California. Unprecedented, never ever been done before. We did it within 30 days. Some of them were very open to it. Some of them pushed back. Some of them completely ghosted us and ignored us. But this is a deep issue because if our elections are stolen, which I have all the evidence to prove that they are, right? If the elections are stolen, it affects everything. It drastically affects your First Amendment rights, your Second Amendment rights. It obviously affects your pocketbook. It affects the water. It affects the air. It affects your children, where your children are going to school, what they're being told, so on and so forth. And people say, just because of the elections? Well, absolutely because of the elections, because we are appointing people illegally. They're being selected, not elected, to operate the color revolution against we the people and poison we the people for control. So it is the number one most important thing. Without the elections being repaired, we will never fix any of this stuff. In fact, and I'm working on a documentary. I'm literally just yesterday, I'm reading this 28-page bullet point by point on exactly an investigation that's already been done with some recommendations. I have an hour and a half video over here that I'm working on, and then I have 30 days of notes from one of my assistants that I'm compiling to put out a documentary on how these elections are stolen. So yeah, it's real. And I scold people all the time. I said, as long as you think that the elections are not being stolen, I said, we're going to continue to have a problem.
Yeah, I was going to ask. So I guess all of the I was going to ask you about the evidence, but I guess what you're saying right now is you're putting it together. You're going to put it out for the public in the video and the paper and everything that you like. That's what we're talking about here, where you say you have the evidence. I'm very curious to hear what that would be, or what some of that would be.
Yeah, well, so here's one of the biggest challenges we have. So there's been this huge push for mail-in votings, even by some
Oh,
prominent conservatives.
it's terrible.
That sets you up. So let me explain the way the apparatus works for your viewers, and then maybe they'll understand how these could possibly be stolen. So what you do is you have this influx. Now, by the way, in California, it's 80 to 90% of all ballots that come in are mail-in. And for example, we just started the election cycle yesterday, but the official election isn't for until June 2nd,
Yeah.
which means that people are already sending in their mail-in ballots. Why is that a problem? Because the county clerks, the election clerks, they take them in batches and they start processing some of them as early as today. And they process them through machines like Dominion, which is now known as Liberty, and that's calculating the vote. So they already know. Now they claim they're air gapped, and that's a mythology and so on and so forth. We have all the evidence of how anybody can hack these systems and get into them, but you don't even need to hack them because they can pre-program the systems that will do the work for them. So think about that. So the mail-in ballots come in, they're already putting them through the tabulators. So the tabulator monster already knows exactly what the percentages and what direction they're going in, right? Therefore, it spit out the information so the baddies know exactly how many ballots they need to harvest. Why on earth would we even put up with that?
Yeah.
And
it's terrible.
And then the signature verification is probably the one that blew me away the most. The signature verification, number one, is digital. They're not verifying the signature on the physical envelope. Go figure. They're getting 4 signatures at a time on a computer. Some of the systems even pre-verify, so it gives you a green, a yellow, or a red box. Are you thinking people aren't going to collect the green? Of course they are. They're going to go green, green, green.
Right.
Some places it's taking less than 3 seconds on average to verify a signature. Now, if you talk about anybody that understands signatures, the best of the best would not be able to verify it that quickly. We have a significant issue in just those 3 things I said alone. When you add them together, it's ripe for fraud.
Oh yeah, I have posted some scenarios that are just completely irrefutable as to just explain to me why, when you go to a universal mail-in balloting system, if you're in a house with 4 adults, which is, 2 parents, 2 adult children who live at home, which is a very common thing these days, we know for a fact that young people vote at a lower level, and most people are not politically active. So the reality is most people don't vote. If I send 4 ballots to a house, the most politically active person in the house now has 4 votes. It's just like, you absolutely cannot say that doesn't happen. Those kids who wouldn't vote, well, now mom gets to say, well, why don't you guys just write this out, fill this out, I'll send it in. And it makes no sense to me. Makes no sense to me whatsoever.
No, it's beautifully said. And your anonymity is completely gone at that moment also.
Yeah, that's crazy. So the last time I checked, and it changes, it seems like it changes every hour, there are at least 60 people that have at one point declared or will run or won't run for the governor's race. In a field of 60 people, how do you feel like you're going to stand out, or you stand out compared to all of your competitors?
Yeah, it's a great question. That many are already on the ballot for governor.
Yeah,
I think we had 135 pre-ballot, right? So it cut down 70. It's wild. Well, the biggest challenge for us is we're under an apparatus that's been going on for a long time that is actually counterintuitive to what the founding fathers were talking about. We are in a 2-party system matrix. So John Adams, James Madison, George Washington all indicated that the 2-party system is going to be the death of America. Thomas Jefferson said, well, if I have to choose between going to a party and that's the only way I can go to heaven, then I guess I'm not going to heaven. He said, I will not go to heaven if I have to choose a party. They understood that this is the illusion of choice and the game that's being gone to control us. So what's very interesting is I'm what you call an NPP candidate. I'm a non-political party preference. Nothing. I will not choose a party. Now, if you line up my values, my conservative values, you would say I'm probably hyper Republican. In fact, I can tell you I'm a lot more conservative than most of Republicans that are running. And they know that, and that's what they fear. So the non-Democrat, non-Republicans in California, believe it or not, are 30% of the voting. The Republicans and Democrats are dropping and filling the number up. So that 30% skyrocketing while the other two parties are dropping. Yet, generally in a debate, the news media will never invite me, even though I'm the highest polling when it comes to the independents. They also won't put me on a poll with the two Republicans. And in addition to that, which is really scandalous, when I do get on a debate stage with the two top Republicans, right? I've done it 5 times. We've done wonderful. I was told I did wonderful. One of the candidates even said, "You're the only guy I'm really concerned about," but I have the media, is what he said. But then those 5 times, never did the news media promote those 5 debates. Never did those 2 candidates promote those 5 debates. Yet all the other debates they had, the news media promoted those and the candidates promoted those. So that tells you exactly the way the suppression is going. Now, we're doing well. We're in the polling that we have, we're starting to skyrocket. There was a Facebook poll that was put out there independently, and you want to talk about suppression, this is crazy. The admin put us on the poll. We don't even know who the admin was. I don't even remember who the Facebook poll was with that, but it had the top 5 candidates, and we were one of them that they put on there. We went immediate, and we were put on there late, hours late. We went from 5 to 4 to 3, and we were cresting right in there, and we were deleted from the poll. And then they put us on 2 more times, and we were deleted 2 more times. Unbeknownst to us, one of our supporters contacted Meta, and I actually have the chat where they admitted that it was their employee that deleted me off of that poll. This is the type of things that we are dealing with, because we are there to tear down the system, right? So they will do everything they can to suppress us, including they've messed with our brakes on our vehicles. I've been poisoned 2 times. It's not the type of candidate that they want, because we are disrupting the system like they've never seen before.
You've been poisoned 2 times?
2 times, yeah. Once it was the last time was right on the edge. It was a bacterial poisoning of some site, according to the doctor. And thank God she cured it. And she said it was close, because my whole lung shut down on the right side. Whatever it was crawling into the left side, and they got it in time before it shut down the left side. So,
oh my gosh, that sounds intense.
Wasn't fun.
No, it doesn't sound fun at all. So, since I only have you for a little bit, just real quick before we have to get off here, what are your thoughts right now? I imagine you say you're kind of a hyper conservative. What are your thoughts on the national political landscape right now? The Republicans, how do you think Trump's doing? Are you a Trump supporter? Where are your feelings on national politics?
That's great. I'm very, very pragmatic. So I try to take each issue individually, right? And there's a lot of things that President Trump that he's done I just absolutely love, right? I think where the downfall in the Trump administration, I've said this before, sometimes I think some things that they're doing are very complicated, and they should put more trust in the people by having better communication with the people, explaining why they're going in this direction and how things are going. Now, I am one of those tinfoil hat wearers that I do think something in the background is being worked on. And I think there's a lot going on in the background there. I'm a big fan of Bobby Kennedy, Secretary Kennedy, and what he's doing.
So just real quick, the first thing listed on your website under issues is an embrace of the Maha agenda. So I imagine you're a Robert Kennedy fan.
Yes, I am. And I am concerned that Trump wanted to give immunity to some of these companies for their putting glyphosate in our foods. The way Kennedy explains it, he says he's not happy with it, but he understands it needs to be a slow rollout. or our food supply will be gone overnight. So I'm a pragmatic. I said, okay, I listen to that. I go, okay, that's fine, but we need to still keep moving forward to get this done. I do like that Anna Paulina Luna pretty much forced Congress into not including immunity for the companies that are pushing glyphosate and things like that. Although they're trying to put language in there right now to roll that decision back. As you know, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, that's a huge issue because I heard Robert Kennedy do a talk about this where basically he said, "Yeah, I'd want it out today, but the problem is we wouldn't be the crops need it. Like we basically have a farming system that relies on Roundup and glyphosate and
It
all these
is.
things to function." So,
It is actually built to, so does GMO. It's built into the system. So I talked to a farmer. He's actually running for lieutenant governor, a good guy, David Collenberg. And he said it took him 7 years to change his chemical farming in order to get it so he was chemical free. And there's one place he still does use GMO food for corn because he hasn't found anything that produces faster. So it's a lot of work to be done and a lot of education to be done. Interesting you bring this up because as being, I lean libertarian, I guess you would say, if that would explain. I don't believe in spending a lot of money through government. I think the people should have a lot more power. But that being said, where I would subsidize is I would subsidize the agricultural community so they would be incentivized to make the cleanest food on the planet, because ultimately I look at that as an investment, because a healthier people is a more prosperous people.
yeah, another thing too that kind of bothers me about our farming industry, and this is where the libertarian in me kind of mashes up against the. I wouldn't want to use the word protectionist, but the idea that we're allowing Chinese companies to come in and buy American farmland. I don't understand the rationale or why we think that's a good idea.
It's nonsense. It's absolutely nonsense. Do we think that the Chinese government doesn't have operatives all throughout every industry in the United States? They do. They are known to send their students here, pay for their students to go through college under the guise of just being a student when they actually are an operative for China. So
Yeah.
the fact that we would allow it is just ludicrous. But who's allowing it? The Biden administration, the Newsom administration, which they cozied up to China and Marxist ideology for a long time.
Oh, yeah, terrible. So before we go, is there anything that you want to say to the folks listening that maybe we didn't touch on? Anything you think is important or that you just want to say before we have to sign off here?
I just like them to just check out our platform. I think they'd be pleasantly surprised that there's just a regular dude, that's me, just a regular dude that's literally fighting for the people, cares about we the people. And I believe authenticity wins the day. And that's why they probably call me the anti-politician, because if they ask a question, I'm going to give you an answer. And if I don't know, I'm not going to BS. I'll just say, I don't know. I'll have to look into that one. Pretty
Yeah,
simple
that's
stuff.
well, the most powerful words in the English language are "I don't know," and you never hear politicians say them. They're very important to
Yep.
understand the things that you know and the things that you don't know. It's the only way we learn. So, anyway, everyone listening, I want to thank you for your time, Mr. Herms. I wish you good luck in the race. I'm going to link everyone to your website. I think it's screwbiggov.com. Is it screwbiggov.com?
So I have many websites. So the campaign website is hermsforcali.com.
Okay.
If they want to go to my screwbiggov.com, they're gonna find a lot of information and documentaries that I've done on various subjects.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for your time, sir. I wish you luck in the race.
Appreciate you, Tyler. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Well, I hope you do well and have a good luck on the rest of the campaign trail.
All right. Take care, my friend.
All right. Thank you.
Bye bye.